Okay, I understand from Sean that we're live now, and welcome everyone. We've already started our first meeting of 2021. So wild to say that. And we just came out of an executive session where we talked about two of our employees that we highly value, Judy Kittner and our village manager, Josue Salmaron. And there's some legislation we'll be talking about with them in a minute. So with that, I'm going to move into announcements. And do we have any announcements? All right, well, it would not be a meeting without me having a few. So I wonder.
One, Brian.
Yes.
I really just want to make an announcement that's a shout out to the council, members of the District of Columbia, the people that live in DC, and hope that everyone is safe and that they're guided in their decision making during this really difficult time in our history. They're very much on my mind.
Thanks for that, Lisa. Yeah, it's really important. So I wondered, I know we have Martin Luther King Jr. Day coming up, actually 2 weeks from today. Does anyone have the highlights that they would like to provide?
I can. So there will be a live march, gather in the usual place at the intersection of Corey and Xenia. Usually it's by subway, although this time it might be more under the Black Lives Matter banner, but that area, 9:30 on Monday, I believe that's the 18th. The march will leave at 9:45. It'll be done by 10:30. And then that will give people time to go home and zoom in to the virtual MLK celebration. And I think it'll be in the paper. It's available from Kevin Magruder. It might even be on Antioch College's website. But anyway, you'll need to register to zoom in. As far as the march goes, dress warm, wear your boots, because it's going to go south on 68 to Limestone, out to Dayton, and then back into town. So it is a little bit long. So plan for that.
Thank you, Laura. Mm-hmm. So I also wanted to highlight, for those of you that are not aware, the council retreat, at least the first retreat, has been scheduled for January 20th from 5 to 8 p.m. We've got some important things that we're going to talk about related to goals and boards and commissions and committees. The other thing I wanted to mention is we had highlighted that the Justice System Collaborative Committee meetings are going to move to one meeting a month. The next meeting will be January 12th. So that's next Tuesday, so a week from tomorrow. And we're going to do that from 4 to 5:30 p.m. Lots of great things happening with the JSCC. The final thing I wanted to highlight was the rapid response testing that we're doing related to COVID. Josue, Lisa, do you want to say anything about that, or Chief?
I can start and maybe others will comment. It has been, I think, confusing to people who are eligible. So, at this point, our goal is to have testing that has the greatest safety impact on our community, and and we don't have unlimited funds. Although, it is a collaboration between the Yellow Springs Community Foundation. I want to express my gratitude for them once again for what they are contributing, as well as the Village of Yellow Springs and the township. So as of this time, free testing in the village is open to people who work in the village in a frontline capacity. So that means like if you work in a shop, if you're a service provider, if you work in the village, even if you do not live in the village. And then the other group that it's open to right now is if you live in the village and you're a frontline service provider outside of the village, right? So if you live in the village and you work at a restaurant in Beaver Creek, or if you live in the village and you work in a store, or if you live in the village, I mean, we know that most nurses and people who are in those kinds of positions have access to testing at their workplace. So the focus is on frontline service providers and on having them tested regularly. So one thing I want to say that everyone needs to remember is that testing is not a one and done thing. It's not like you get tested and you're negative and you're like, woohoo, I'm good to go, I'm negative. That's not true. In fact, we know, unfortunately, that you might even be developing COVID and still having a negative test. So it's important to be tested regularly. And that's why we're really trying to focus on a testing protocol in our community so that our frontline service providers in the village and those who live in the village who have those kinds of jobs, who are absolutely the most at risk, are the most likely able to be tested. And we want to do more, but the good news is that there are other and more ways and places to get tested other than in the village. So we ask you, if you have the capacity to pay and you have access to go someplace else, that you allow the funds that we have here in the community to go to those who don't have the funds or the convenience of doing this testing, okay? I mean, we're trying to raise other monies and we want to expand this as much as possible, but please keep that in mind, and we wish that it could be broader, but right now we're really trying to focus on having the greatest safety impact, and we know this is the way to do it. The other thing is that it's not just like walk up. You have to go to the website and make an appointment to come in and get your testing done. So, I mean, that's another thing that's really important. We're trying to make sure that our messaging is more clear, that you can understand, you know, what you need to do to get an appointment. And we know that it hasn't been perfectly clear. So please let us know if you have any questions. The company that is doing the testing, who at this point is coordinating the appointments, is called Wellness Flow. And their website is wellnessflowllc.com. And we are also exploring ways to have more testing available at a lower cost. We're starting to explore ways to do mobile testing. But for now, if you are a frontline service worker who works in the village, wherever you live, or if you live in the village or the township and you work elsewhere as a frontline service provider, you're eligible and you'll be asked to provide ID and make an appointment before you come. I hope that's helpful with like clarification. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. I can add more details. In terms of what days we're providing free testing, this coming week, it's Tuesday and Saturday from 8:30 to 10:30 in the morning. And I want to remind folks that this is by, as Lisa stated, by appointment only. And it's a drive and park. So you drive and you park at the fire station and walk into your appointment. Appointment planned for a 30-minute visit. And the appointment, there's two ways you can schedule an appointment. One is online, as Lisa stated, through the Wellness Flow website, and that's wellnessflowllc.com. You go online and you schedule your appointment online. It's important that you choose the site. This company has multiple sites where they do their testing. The ones that we're sponsoring, and it's free to the Yellow Springs residents and the folks that work in the village, you have to select the location that is 101 East Perman Street, Yellow Springs. It's important that you select that site for your appointment. And so find a spot on that calendar, book it, and you're set. If you don't have a computer, you need to schedule an appointment. You can also schedule an appointment by phone. So there's an Acuity scheduling app, and I'm gonna speak with Philip about getting this up on our website if you haven't gotten it on our website or on Facebook. So there's the app there, and you can choose the appointment. Again, it's a 30-minute slot, and that's for using a phone app. If you have any challenges accessing this technology, reach out to us, reach out to the Community Foundation. We'll be happy to direct you and support you and whatever way we can to schedule your appointment. It is important to note that you have to show some proof of ID. So come with your ID and come with a proof that you are an employee in the village and the township. So any form that you can use to prove that, the Community Foundation and the provider has indicated a letter of reference from a business or a pay stub from a Yellow Springs or Miami Township business. So you would need those two items for your appointment.
All right, thank you, Josue. And, since we're like the last item we had on announcements was COVID-19 updates, anything else you want to highlight?
We're anticipating numbers, or we're keeping track of the numbers as a direct impact of Christmas and New Year's. If you recall, after Thanksgiving, we saw that impact, and in the state, we reached that 13,000 single-day case load. And so we're on the lookout for what Christmas and New Year's activities are going to have an impact on the cases. We have, our public safety personnel have started vaccines. They were able to get their vaccine, so we have that safety measured and precaution that we're taking, and that's in addition to the robust precautions they're taking with wearing masks and all the protective equipment that they're wearing. So that provides some relief to our frontline staff in the public safety sector, and we'll continue to do our services. In addition to just the essential services, we're doing all the precautionary services in the downtown area, such as the hand sanitizer stations, mass distribution. So we'll continue all those efforts. We are resuming our town hall meetings. It's particularly important now since we expect to have a negative impact on cases as it relates to the Christmas and New Year's activities. I hope to be proven wrong. I hope that folks did what they were supposed to do and follow all the precautions, but we have to be realistic as what the negative impact it may be. So in short, we're continuing our virtual town halls and our engagement activities, and we keep our community informed of any development locally around the cases and hospital utilizations.
Great. And I'll assume those town halls will be Wednesdays at 7 p.m. as Correct. They've been. Okay, great.
Yes, we'll be back on the same schedule and the same channel.
Great. Chief Carlson, I see you on the line as well. Do you want to add anything?
Hi, thanks, Brian. I do want to add, we've had a few complaints from residents concerning a few residents who are very opposed to wearing masks. So we're going to intervene, attempt mediation, but I did want to bring that to everyone's attention. Please contact us. Do not engage directly. A few of the folks, they're looking for an argument, and it better left to us, and we'll take it from there. No further updates from this end regarding COVID, though, Brian. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Chief. I appreciate that reminder. It's probably helpful for me as well. All right, and I also see that Florence Randolph is on the line. Anything you'd like to add, Florence?
I just wanted to say thank you to those in the village of Yellow Springs who were very generous in their giving and helping families with food and gifts for their children and the parents. I don't have my figures in front of me, but I think we helped 28 families. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We helped, I think it's 28 or 32 families over the Christmas holidays. And it was all from the donations from the community. And we just say thank you for that. And we've gotten some thank you cards from the families, and we will be passing those along for those who donated. We still have, I think I have about 12 more applications on my desk for rent assistance because we had to hold off until we found out what January would bring. But we have helped in excess of 80 families in utility help, and through the generosity of the foundation and the township. So I just want to say thank you to the village.
Thank you, Florence. And and thank you, Chief, as well. Appreciate all you guys are doing on the front line. Any other announcement?
Brian,
Yeah.
Brian, I'm sorry, I have an update. I think most of you would know that there was a new stimulus bill that was passed at the federal level and approved by the White House. One of the things that it does locally is that it extends the deadline for CARES Act money that went unutilized or underutilized. So I think the benefit that this is going to have is particularly around the rental and utility assistance. As you know, that's been one of the services that has struggled to get up and running in different regions. So now with the extended deadline, I think that there's going to be better utilization of that service into 2021. So I put that out there just as an update on what's happening at the national level. That's going to have an impact on social services and the allocation of CARES funding at the local level. So if you are in need of those services or know someone that is, continue to access the Community Action Partnership. Florence is working with them, so we'll keep abreast of those issues.
Thanks for that, Josue. I mean, we also know that there's more money promised to local governments, and the state of Ohio has been good about allocating those funds. So it'd be great to see that continue. So thanks a lot. All right, so I think with that, we're going to move into our consent agenda, and those are the minutes from our last meeting on December 21st. And Brianne, let's wait. So I think I will entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, so Brianne, if you call the roll, please.
Ausch.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
All right, thank you. All right, so next up, we have a review of the agenda. There is one item, which is ordinance 2021-02, which I am going to suggest we remove from this agenda and add it to the next agenda. I feel like it's a little bit more involved than might have been originally considered. Any other thoughts related to the agenda?
There did seem to be something missing from the attachments for that. At least, so I would support removing it.
Yeah, my understanding is that it's not urgent, but I do think it is something we will need to address. And I'll say related to beyond the attachments, and since I saw Denise on the call, not sure if she's still there.
Yeah, I'm here.
I see. I appreciated the references. I looked at the 3 URLs that were provided. I do want to make sure we're very careful about the differences that Yellow Springs is experiencing from other municipalities. And I know those references talk about, you know, big and small, like benefit from this, but Yellow Springs is not just big and small. We also are inundated with parking issues. So that being said, I just want to make sure when we do bring it back, and I think we can do that for the next meeting, that we really think about how we are distinct from the typical community. Okay.
Hey, Brian, on the agenda, there are two 2102s.
Oh.
And actually, there's two 2101s.
No.
So we just need to like read
It's
number.
ordinance and resolution.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. So we are talking about ordinance 2102.
Okay, thanks.
And also in this meeting, I believe we have a nomination for Planning Commission.
Yes.
Thanks, Lisa.
Oh,
Okay, cool. We'll make sure to add that to new business since we don't have any report outs for our commissions. All right, anything else? All right, Mary Ann, petitions and communications.
no, there were none. I
Wow.
didn't have any.
You don't want to pick up any?
I mean, there may have been, but I never got any, so.
I checked with Judy. She didn't have any to send to me, so.
Okay, wow. Huh.
That's a
All right.
first.
See, well, all right, then I guess we're going to move into legislation. And first up, we have 2021-01. And I think, Brianne, if you could read that in by title only, that'd be great.
Sure. Ordinance 2021-01, approving council rules and procedures for 2021.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
Okay, so I heard Mary Ann move and Kevin second. Okay, so this is a first reading. We're not doing it as an emergency. And Brianne, I think it would be great if you could highlight some of the things that are different in these rules and procedures.
Okay, let me pull that up here real quick. So rules and procedures, of course, council does rules and procedures every year. But on this reading, we've had some discussion, and I'm sure it'll probably come up at the retreat as well, with respect to, how we've had to adjust to this platform of Zoom, and how we are able to carry on the public's business virtually, and then also rules for decorum and how to interact with the members of the public as we're all dealing with heightened sense of stress with the pandemic. There are other communities that I've provided for comparison purposes, essentially, in terms of council in conduct during meetings and then also outside of meetings. And in terms of boards and commission members, council adopted in 2018 a set of guidelines for board and commission members. And even prior to that, there was some discussion that council members should not be imposing those sorts of rules for board and commission members if they were not willing to follow the same rules that they were imposing on the board and commission members. So those are the primary changes. Of course, those will be up for discussion at the retreat, but we tried to tie them as closely as possible to the village's stated values when we were making those proposed modifications.
All right, thanks, Brianne. So I guess I will add to that, one of the sections that is new is highlighting those village values and commitments that council is making, that I guess puts us a little bit more on the line, along with our village staff members, in terms of committing to being a model employer, being a welcoming community, and being anti-racist. So that being said, I think most of the other tweaks to the rules and procedures are pretty straightforward. But one thing that I do want to also highlight that's a little bit different is we're bringing this as an ordinance as opposed to a resolution. And part of that is this commitment to the village values. So any comments from council?
Well, when I was reading it, it references 607 and 608 in the personnel manual, which then was not included. And I'm looking at now, I don't know if the personnel manual has changed since 2014 or not, but that's what I pulled up. So I just think it would be good to know what is in it that we're agreeing to. But
Okay,
I will provide that for the packet.
great. Anything else?
I'd like to comment that I think it's important that to promote the village values, we have a standardization of performance in terms of decorum, irregardless of our role as elected officials versus employees or even people sitting on commissions. And so I'm really in support of this aspect of this document. You know, the other thing that I would like to comment upon is that, you know, what research is showing, and I think maybe we've seen some of that in our own operations, is that it's maybe more difficult for people to remember like where they are. Like, we're not sitting at a podium, we're not sitting next to each other up in the council chambers, but we're still in council. And I think for all of the council members and for all of the commission members, I think sometimes when you're online, it's harder to remember where you are because we're balancing these multiple identities. So I just encourage myself in terms of my behavior to just stay as focused as possible and be as respectful as possible. And, you know, I'll be enforcing that with the commissions that I'm part of, just to remind people that, you know, we're still present and we need to be professional. We need to uphold the village values and that's really important now more than ever, because as Brianne so astutely said, everyone's at a high level of anxiety and stress right now. So thank you for bringing this document in front of us.
Thanks for those comments, Lisa. Anything else? Okay, so I think, did I see Megan? Yes, I see a zombie hand raised.
Yeah, thanks. I guess I'm a little confused because I don't see the changes being called out as they usually are. Usually they're called out in underline or something. So I was wondering if there's a version that has the changes of this document called out. And secondly, I know, and it's been talked about, I've talked with Judy about it, the issue of whether board and commission members, or I guess perhaps even council members in this case, can send a letter to the editor about a community issue. And I know that that's, you know, something that's important, that I think citizens want to hear from community members, especially in positions of power, what they think on issues. So if that's something that's being considered by this, I'd like to ask some more questions about that. But again, I was wondering if the changes could be called out specifically.
Yes, so I think for, since this is an ordinance that will get a second reading, we'll make sure the next one bolds those changes. But honestly, I think it's really just the one section that has the two references to the village values. That's the main change. I think there might have been another change in there, but that's the main addition. But yeah, we'll definitely call that out. And thanks for those comments. Anything else? Okay, so I would like to go ahead and call a vote on this, but we will have a second reading because this is an ordinance. Brianne, if you could do that roll call.
Sure. Hausch,
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Okay. And we'll make sure all changes are highlighted for the next reading, which will be at our meeting on the day after Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Brian, I would like this to be delayed for a second reading because council has never discussed this. And this should be discussed in the retreat. These are our rules about how we run our business. And this has come out of nowhere as far as I'm concerned. We didn't create this. It's just appeared on the agenda. So this needs to be discussed actually by council, and probably the 20th is the time to do it.
Okay, I'm okay with putting that on the agenda for the 20th and then bringing this back for the second reading at the first meeting in February. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? All right, so we're going to move to resolutions 2021-01. Brianne, if we could read that in by title only, please.
Sure. Resolution 2021-01, authorizing the sale during calendar year 2021 of municipally owned property which is not needed for public use or which is obsolete or unfit for the use for which it was acquired by internet auction pursuant to ORC section 721-15B.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Josue, is this you?
Yes, Brian, thank you. This is a housekeeping item. As you know, every year the village looks to sell property that has useful life or it has some economic value, and that we can recapture some of the value of property that is aged out of our operations or equipment and property that we no longer use. So this is authorization for us to be able to sell this on internet auction per ORC code.
Excellent. Any questions or comments?
I just wonder, is there anything that comes to mind, Josue, out of all the myriad pieces of equipment we own? Are there any items that we would be familiar with that you are looking to dispose of?
Yes, there's one that comes to mind. One, if you recall from our budget work sessions, we talked about a water vehicle that needs to be replaced, that it's rusted and different parts of the vehicle. And we're going to try to, our first intent with equipment, as has been the practice with our vehicles, is that we try to repurpose them and use them in another activity. That's been the case for the police vehicles. My village vehicle is a former police vehicle. So if we are able to put it back in circulation for another use, we would try. If not, then we would try to capture some value by selling it at auction. So I can think of that one van that we're looking to replace in 2021, and we will try to capture some money from it. The other one that's on our radar is the replacement of one police vehicle that's been budgeted for 2021. We haven't made decisions about that vehicle. Our first intent would be to try to put it in circulation and some other function. But if we don't have a need for it, we'll try to sell it and get some money. We're more likely to put that vehicle back in circulation and maybe try to sell the vehicle that I use or the vehicle that Florence uses for her work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, Brianne, if you would do the roll call, please.
Sure. Curlis,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes. All right, next up, we've got resolution 2021-02. And Brianne, if you could read that in by title only again.
Resolution 2021-02, approving a salary adjustment for the village manager.
Can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
All right. Mary Ann, do you want to talk a little bit about our process this year?
Sure. So we had two council members work with Josue. Let's see, is this one on Josue? Yes. And that was Brian and myself. Josue wrote what he had accomplished in 2020. And Brian and I talked with Josue, and I think we, and I know the rest of council have been and continue to be very pleased with the job that Josue has been doing. And in particular, the unintended events of the coronavirus, which became front and center in 2020. And Josue stepped into what was a pretty big void, and not only provided leadership for village government, but also for the village as a whole in a collaborative effort. And those of you who have watched the town halls will have seen him almost every week for, I don't know, what, 6 months or more than 6 months, 9 months maybe. So, and then we talked about goals for 2021, which are continuation in some respects of the 2020 goals. And those are still things that are going to be defined, but I could say one in particular that's distinct is about the community broadband, community Wi-Fi. And that's something that Josue has really stepped up in 2020 and extended that into downtown and to other places in the community where to create social equity for people who wouldn't otherwise have Wi-Fi. So we feel very fortunate to have Josue leading the village team. And so now we're going to talk about salary, right?
That's right. So thanks, Mary Ann. And yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it any better. Great overview. But I guess I will add on behalf of council that I think my sense is that we're all in agreement that we have been so fortunate to have Josue Salmeron at the helm during COVID-19. And honestly, Josue, can't imagine navigating this without you. So you have been awesome. And, related to that, one of the things that council has, at least as long as I've been on council, we've had a sort of cap on what our increases are. And those involve the not only the cost of living adjustment, which we do want to award Josue at the 1.5% that we've approved for all of our team members, but also we want to provide a 3.5% increase as a merit bonus, because not only has Josue done a great job in leading our community, but also when you look at the grants that he's helped to bring in and just everything else that he's done, and those grants, by the way, are over $2 million for the village, huge. It's really everything that we expected when we hired Josue. So that is what we are proposing on the table. Again, it conforms with our practice of capping our increase at 5%. And again, looking at both the cost of living and the merit. So with that, do any other council members have any comments before we take a vote?
I think if I were to say much of anything, it would certainly be an echoing of all of the positive comments that have been shared already. Yeah, I agree 100% with Brian. I don't know what it would have been like trying to go through this pandemic without Josue, without your leadership and your calm demeanor and just your service-minded attitude towards things. And just want to say personally that I appreciate that for the position that you feel and that the person that you are. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Kevin.
you. I'm honored. Thank you. It's been an honor, pleasure to serve for you and this community. Thank you.
Thanks, Josue. Lisa, I saw you mic off. Did you want to say something?
Well, I mean, also just to say thank you. And I mean, one of the things that I recognize is that Josue works at the large strategic level and at the same time also tracks the smaller projects, like the projects that Art and Culture Commission has been a part of this year that take up his time. And so it's everything from the grants to keeping those other projects going. And I just feel like it comes to mind like the almost like a circus trick of keeping plates spinning, and that you're always keeping those plates spinning for all of us and for the community, and running the town halls and always having the most accurate information expressed clearly. So I just want to say thank you. And as was said, I can't imagine living through 2020 as a council person without you, Mr. Summerone. And I'm so glad you're with us going into the next year.
Thank you.
All right. Laura, did you want to add anything else?
Thank you for all your work in 2020, Josue. I won't take any more time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, council members. So with that,
Brian,
yes.
I don't know how Judy normally does it with placeholders, but just added a
We need to do a motion.
And do we need a motion to amend?
Yes.
Since it was submitted as X,
Yes.
to put in the merit, what the merit is and what the cost of living is.
Sounds good. So I'll ask for a motion to approve a 1.5% increase in cost of living and a 3.5% increase as a merit bonus.
Okay, I move to accept that amendment.
Second.
Okay. So let's go ahead and vote on that amendment. Brianne, if we can call the roll.
Krieger,
Yes.
Hausch,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Okay. And then I think we need to ask for a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
I'm second.
Okay. And Brianne, if you could call the roll again.
McQueen,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
Hausch,
Yes.
Krieger. I'm sorry, Lisa, I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next up, we have Resolution 2021-03. And again, we can read that in by title only, Brianne.
Resolution 2021-03, approving a salary adjustment for the Clerk of Council.
All right. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Lisa, do you want to talk a little bit about our review with Judy?
Sure. I partnered with Brian Hausch on this, as was described by Mary Ann regarding Josue's. Judy did a self-evaluation. We had a conversation with her. I think we're still refining the 2021 goals, and mostly our focus with 2021 goals is trying to avoid goals that are the song that never ends, ways to make certain that goals are measurable and can be accomplished within a calendar year. to avoid having the status always being in progress. Because there's certainly some aspects of all of our work that, will be in progress forever. So we're still tuning those up. But as far as performance in 2020, speaking for myself, I felt that Judy's self-evaluation was both humble and modest. As my experience of Judy is that she's been absolutely a rock for our council during really difficult times, transitioning to the Zoom format, working very hard to understand how we can best and most effectively perform and work together in these settings. So I want to acknowledge Judy's work during a very difficult time. On top of that, balancing all of the work-life balance stuff and doing that with, at least on the surface, calm and collected. So I've been really appreciative of Judy's work this year. Brian, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, thanks for that, Lisa. I just want to say some of you might realize that Judy is absent at this meeting, which I know is killing her. She unfortunately had an accident, and what really kind of underscores what Judy's all about is all she did was talk too much about tonight's meeting when that was the last thing we wanted her to focus on. So I will say Judy is another person who, when we did our review, mentioned that she was the person giving the granola bars and keeping people hydrated, and doesn't realize how much she does, but I think we all do, to really keep everything together. Not only in terms of keeping us legal and on the mark with Sunshine Law and everything else, but also we need people that are focused on the end game. And that's where Judy has been at. And we just so much appreciate her. So it was great to have a conversation with Judy and really understand, her commitments to the village. Remember, she's 10 years in, and we expect 10 plus years more. So great to work with Judy. So with that, I don't know if there are any other comments that people would like to add before we talk about our, amendment to the resolution. So what we are recommending is the 1.5% cost of living adjustment. Judy is part of the longevity increases, so she will be getting a 2.6% increase in her salary for being with the village for 10 years. And that will kick in about midway through the year. And so in terms of a merit increase, we're suggesting an additional 1%. So I guess I'd entertain a motion to approve that recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So Brianne, I guess, first of all, we'll vote on that amendment.
McQueen,
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Hausch,
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Okay. And then I'll entertain, let's vote on the final resolution.
Hausch.
I'll move.
Oh, sorry.
Should I move it as amended?
Yes,
We did,
please.
okay, a motion, yeah.
I move as amended.
Second.
Okay. Brianne?
Hausch,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Okay. So last up, we have resolution 2021-04, and Brianne, again, we can read that in by title only.
Resolution 2021-04, approving the amended solid waste management plan of the Greene County Solid Waste Management District.
Can I get a motion?
Moved.
Second.
Okay, Josue?
Thank you, Brian. The county has adopted a solid waste management plan. It's part of their strategic planning and regular process of their operations. The plan has been distributed to council, and this is one of those processes that the county has that requires communities to have input and accept the plan. We are fortunate in our community that we have several community members are part of the development of this plan. Matthew Lawson, who is on our environmental commission, sat on the committee that finalized this plan. So our community has had a seat at the table in providing input and crafting this document. So it is, I'm pleased with what has been presented, particularly in considerations of the limitations of the county. And those limitations are the financial constraints and the technology and values that the county has in implementing solid waste management processes and plans in place. So I think that we have a plan that is as good as we're going to get within the constraints, and our community has had a seat at the table to provide input. So I don't know if community has any specific questions. I can come back with a detailed presentation, as I am prepared to make a presentation on our mitigation plan that the council has approved.
I talked to Matthew today to just get his sense of the plan, and he said he was very impressed with the work that was done. We're not leaders of the pack in terms of solid waste management, looking at it environmentally, but he was very impressed with the work that was done. And he did say that they plan on hiring a full-time educator, or he wasn't sure whether it actually was going to make it through the end, but if so, that means that someone who could come to our schools, could come help the Environmental Commission, could help educate our community in terms of what resources are available and what we can do. And so that's pretty cool.
And I would reiterate that is key to a solid waste management strategy. I know we've been talking about recycling for many years, and year after year, we're getting more reports about how effective recycling in our country and around the world is. And the most impactful thing that we could do to have an impact on waste is reducing our waste. And education is key to that, to understanding the impact that we have through our consumption behavior and the things that we buy. And so I think the educational component, I spoke with Donna about it, and I am impressed that they're going to be reaching out to the schools, going into the schools and start shaping the future generations and be more conscious of their consumption and have an impact for generations to come. So that's key to the strategy.
All right. Any other comments before we take a vote? All right, Brianne, if we could call the roll then.
Sure. Stokes.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we are at the moment on the agenda where we're looking at citizen concerns. So this is the time when we would love to hear any comments, up to 3 minutes, about any items that are not on our agenda. So do we have any citizen concerns? Okay, then we're going to move into special reports. And the first special report is about hazard mitigation. And Josue, you're leading that one off.
Yes, thank you, Brian. I'm going to share my screen. Let me get my PowerPoint up. Okay. Let me know once you're able to see it. Are you able to see that? It says Greene County Mitigation Plan.
Yes.
Okay, so previously council has voted to adopt the Greene County Mitigation Plan. This is an important process of the county's emergency management agency and its strategies to both identify risk, manage risk, and also leverage resources at the state and federal level. So that plan is necessary, but I'll start from the beginning. Oh, let's see what's going on here. All right, purpose. The mitigation is an effort to reduce loss of life, property by lessening the impact of disasters. In order for mitigation to be effective, we need to take action now before the next disaster to reduce human and financial consequences later. That's done through analyzing risk, reducing risk, and insuring against risk. This is a requirement under the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2020. That's the Robert Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act as amended by the Disaster Mitigation Act with the intention to reduce the loss of life and property, human suffering, economic disruption, and disaster assistance costs resulting from natural disasters. Under this legislation, state, tribal, and local governments must adopt a hazard mitigation plan as a condition for receiving certain types of non-emergency disaster assistance through the Hazard Mitigation Assistance Program. The legislation also requires that the plan be updated every 5 years using a process that includes public involvement, risk assessment, and mitigation strategy. The plan before that the council has previously adopted did have a public involvement that included the local governments and municipalities weighing in on the county strategies and on conducting their own risk assessment and how we can better prepare as a community to address those risks. So the mitigation plan identified natural disasters and risks that can impact the community based on historical experience, estimate the potential frequency and magnitude of disasters, and assess potential losses to life and property. The risk assessment process provides a factual basis for the activities proposed in the mitigation strategies. The following were identified as risk in Greene County: severe thunderstorm, infestation, drought, dam failures, wildfires, water quality, terrorism, extreme temperatures, tornadoes, flooding, severe winter storms, earthquakes, if you believe that, that was part of a risk assessment, public health emergencies. 2020 is a prime example of that, and hazardous materials incident. The strategy based on public input identify risk and available capabilities. Communities develop mitigation goals and objectives as part of a strategy for mitigating hazard-related losses. The strategy is a community's approach for implementing mitigation activities that are cost-effective, technically feasible, and environmentally sound, as well as allowing strategic investment of limited resources. Mitigation strategies identified for Yellow Springs are the following, and I will go in greater details in some of these areas. Example, the installing underground power lines. This is work that as we're able to from financially, we are doing that work. Part of our mitigation strategy and our allocation of resources plan is doing an assessment of our electric grid and identifying from a service perspective where our deficiencies and challenges lay, and developing a plan to address that. We've done some of that work. We have been awarded where we've won awards because of some of this effort of undergrounding power lines in certain key areas. And that work continues. Part of the mitigation strategy is to continue to do more underground power lining. This is in addition to the power line clearing. I think some of you might have observed over the weekend, over the holidays, that we had our tree trimming crew coming around trimming around power lines. That's also part of the mitigation strategies. The updating the stormwater systems and relining, those are key. That's key work that we've been doing. I've got a couple slides in our end of the year presentation and to provide council an update on water and wastewater systems. And I'll talk a bit about our stormwater management in that process, but that's also key for various reasons. One, we want to be good stewards of our resources and we want to be protective of the environment, and in fact, the stormwater management strategies are part of that solution. Last year, one of the presentations that I conducted was on the stormwater impact in our system, particularly how it affected our sewer system through infiltration and inflow. So on this presentation, I'm also including our sewer system. And part of the mitigation strategy also includes our sewer system, because one of the effects that stormwater can have on our sanitary sewer system is that can cause us to have overflows. Fortunately, we have a retention pond for overflows, but water precipitation in our community can exceed our storage capacity, and that could put us in a difficult situation where we are forced to dump contaminated water into the Glen. That's something that we want to avoid because, for obvious reasons, we don't want to contaminate the Glen, which is one of our most prized, precious natural resources in the area. So having an effective strategy in place for that stormwater management and sanitary sewer system is key. Identifying at-risk structures and special flood hazard areas. The current map, if you recall, there was a presentation from Denise a while back about an updated flood hazard area that includes the Glens, but for the most part, we're out of that overall flood area. But with the annexation of the Glen, that's now in our municipality, and we have to continue to identify those structures that are part of that flood hazard area. Establish flood diversion programs for roads in Greene County using the HyperReach mass notification system. That's something that is in place. It's worked effectively. You would have observed that most recently with a tornado warning that we had and other emergency notifications that we sent. So we've got a good system in place. Today we tested our siren system, so that works too. So those are all part of our HyperReach mass notification systems. Seek funding for, prioritize, and remove and reallocate at-risk structures or construction of improved and new storm drainage systems or levees to protect at-risk structures. That's been key for us in 2020. One of the projects that we pursued was rerouting of the storm system along Dayton Street. There's been a problem that the government identified in the 60s, and we're hoping to start working on and possibly replace the system in 2021. I hope to have big news on that by the next council meeting, if not on the first meeting in February. Seek funding for new storm drainage systems or levees to protect at-risk structures. Again, that's related to the previous item. Monitoring wells for source water contamination. We put a lot of effort into monitoring our water source area and contamination to our drinking water, specifically because we've had the Vernay situation that we've been working through. We've been able to rule out some of the risk factors for groundwater contamination of our drinking source. And I can provide more information on that, but in short, the groundwater that's contaminated under Vernade property is not within the aquifer where we draw our drinking water from. But we continue to monitor the situation. Johnny and Brad and the team have identified areas to install additional monitoring well, and that's to be able to expand our early detection system. Right now we have monitoring wells where we constantly regularly monitor water quality, and for 2021 and beyond, we're looking to expand that detection zone. They develop a program providing assistance for the desperate population. This, our work is not just all natural hazards and structures, it's also people. and how do we help ensure the public safety and the well-being of our citizens. So we, part of our program, and you've seen it throughout 2020, in particular the work that Florence Randolph is doing, we're assisting individuals with social service, mental health needs, and providing resources to help individuals reach their goals and stabilize families. So that's part of our hazard mitigation. And it's very broad, but some of those details include that what number of residents or what residents are on life supporting equipment. Our team, our police department, in partnership with the fire department, keep logs on which residents need special assistance when it comes to responding to an environmental hazard or a natural disaster. So that's part of the process. And some of our, this next item, purchase and install security camera systems, we had 2 break-ins in our water treatment facility where we produce water, and that was quite alarming for us because that's our drinking water source. And that's something that we need to, it needs to be one of our most protected assets. And so that's part of our hazard mitigation plan is being able to properly secure all of our facilities and ensure the safety of those facilities. So security is an aspect of hazard mitigation, and we are working on that for 2021. Encourage the cooperation of neighbors to include but not limited to contingency plans for evacuation, care of neighboring families, pets, and communication among neighbors in the event of natural disasters, contingency plans for checking in on the shut-in and frail elderly. 2020 allowed us to have tremendous growth in this area. The Neighbors program was launched as a as a strategy to check in with all of our residents in the community with respect to the COVID pandemic. So we've got good systems in place that we were able to develop as a response to the pandemic. And I think that these are systems that are that help build resilience in a community in case of a natural disaster. Finally, what are the benefits of hazard mitigation? Having a hazard mitigation plan will increase the awareness of hazards, risks, and vulnerabilities, identify actions for risk reduction focused on resources on the greatest risk, communicate priorities to state and federal officials, and increase overall awareness of hazards and risk. That, in a nutshell, is the presentation. Top priorities for us are key infrastructure items, mentioned stormwater, sanitary sewer, electrical. We have to be able to deliver essential services, and it's a top priority for us because we don't have to wait for a natural disaster for these things to collapse. They are at risk of collapsing, and we are addressing our age infrastructure and making improvements every day and in every way that we can with the limited resources that we have. I'll now take your questions.
I have a question and a comment. First, the comment. I want to give a shout out to the Planning Commission, to Tom Dietrich, Nadia Malarkey, and Denise Swinger, because we went through the zoning code and made a lot of improvements to handle stormwater on site in building projects. And so that's just one thing, unless I missed it, was not in the mitigation strategy. So that was a big effort that hopefully will result in that, a lot of mitigation of stormwater. And then, Josue, the question I have is, are downspouts being tied into the sanitary, is that a huge problem? Is it something we should have like an incentive program to encourage people to untie their downspouts?
Is that a problem? Yes. Downspouts and sump pumps. These elements were identified back in 2012 with an assessment that was done of our sanitary system. They continue to be a problem. Unfortunately, not much was done from when that assessment was done. Johnny, Tanner, Brad, myself, we convened in 2019 and we put together a list of things, top priority, low-hanging fruit that we could do to have an impact on the system. And we focused on that I also presented on council on two items that we think are enabling legislation that would allow us to have a greater impact on stormwater entering our sanitary system, and that is sump pumps. And Laura, I think that you had presented or talked about this because you had, during your tenure, you had drafted letters and memos to citizens and council about the impact that sump pumps had in our sanitary systems. So in short, the tying downspouts and sump pumps into a system, getting those removed would have an exponential impact on our system. I've got great numbers to show you tonight in terms of how much infiltration and inflow we've been able to reduce in our system. And I think removing sump pumps and downspouts will only improve the effectiveness of our system and resiliency of our system. On your comment about the stormwater and the legislation and what planning has done, certainly all of it adds up. All of it has an impact. I think the stormwater mitigation and management plan as part of the zoning is an enabling legislation and helps create a framework and a structure to address how stormwater gets managed at the site, and ultimately it has an impact on the system because that's less water that we're putting in the system, and we're incentivizing and encouraging water retention on the property. So yes, certainly that helps. Did that answer your question, Laura, and your comment?
Well, I think council, maybe in our retreat, we can talk about implementing in a more formal way a program with goals to reduce the tie-ins, the sump pump and the downspout tie-ins.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you, Josue. And you're gonna stay on the mic because our other special report is our 2020 annual report and year in review. And Josue, I've got the current PowerPoint, so I'll run slides for you.
All right.
All right.
All right, Brian, you there? Do you want me to take it or do you want to introduce it?
Yeah, I'm gonna let you take the first part and then I'll do the year in review part, so.
Okay, well, kick us into the next slide.
All right.
All right, before I get going on all of these different items, I want to say that this is the teamwork makes the dream work. All the successes and accomplishments that you'll see here is our direct result of team collaboration and folks going above the call of duty. This is particularly important in COVID. I could not ask for a more devoted team and more creative team. So all of this has been, it's a tribute to or recognition of all of our hard work and commitment. I also want to thank council for being supportive and enabling and all the wonderful things that you are to get us to be so successful. So there's certainly a group effort and we're delivering great value for our residents. So I think all of us should be proud of these accomplishments. All right, so let's start off with active transportation plan. We secured $1.8 million for active transportation plan. This plan was approved by council with significant community input. We are happy to have been able to secure $1.8 million to fund the active transportation plan. One key element of this is to replace infrastructure. We're talking about sidewalks, bike shares that are deteriorating and will need to be replaced. So this will cost us money at some point. And so being able to secure that $1.8 million to not only replace aging infrastructure that's key to our transportation efforts, but also in building out and enhancing our active transportation features of its community. So that's key. In 2020, we shifted government operations and service to a technology-based platforms to improve the efficiencies during pandemic. When COVID hit and many municipalities were struggling how to do the basic services, getting phone calls and coordinate meetings. We were a bit of ahead of the pack. We were able to easily transition into virtual meetings, whether they were council meetings, town halls, and government functions. We were prepared without realizing it that we were going to need it so urgently. So what are direct results of that? Virtual town meetings. We held 54 virtual town hall meetings, and I know there's a couple residents that have been with us at every meeting. So I appreciate all those citizens and residents and folks from abroad that tune in. So thank you for all the support, and we hope that we provided you valuable, timely information. We also held 26 council meetings. We were able to easily transition from an in-person to a virtual council meetings, and council could continue to do its much needed work as both leaders in the community and as a legislative body. Brian, I think you jumped 3 slides ahead of me. Or I can talk about our team profile.
Yeah, I'm trying to go back, but.
Okay. All right, well, we're on that slide. The team profile, this is the makeup of our team. 54% are male, 36 are female. Ethnicity, 74% are white. The 12% are 2 or more race and ethnicities, 4% are Hispanic, 8% Black, and 2% American Indian. Of our residency, 34% live inside of Yellow Springs, 22% reside in Xenia. In short, about 70% of our workforce resides in Greene County. So we do have a local workforce. So they're living within the county. All right, Brian, if you could go to slide 3. I think we left off at that last item. All right, next item there. Oops. All right, next item is Citizens passed issue 5, which is to renew a 5-year operating levy, and they did so by a margin of 3-1. We provide an education campaign focused on making the budget easier for residents to understand, and residents responded by overwhelmingly supporting the 5-year operating levy. I think this speaks volumes to our residents' commitment for the services that our government provides. Because we're in a pandemic, there's anxiety around finances and what the economic impact all is, and our residents, they renew their commitment to their government to provide the services that we provide to our residents. So I'm proud of that accomplishment. We directed the assessment of infrastructures to address critical areas. One of those being relining sanitary sewer lines, 3,900 feet of those, reducing infiltration and inflow, and more importantly, we prevented catastrophic failure in the system. We discovered sanitary sewers that were a near collapse. Next slide, please, Brian. We installed public Wi-Fi in the downtown area. We've covered over 20 acres of the area, of the downtown area, with high-speed internet. And the team and I, we're having meetings about the next phase. So we're really excited about this opportunity. We've completed a comprehensive land use plan, which incorporates the priorities of the community. There's a lot of input. Oh, sorry, that issue 5 is on there twice. All right, and finally, led the community's COVID-19 response strategy, which included the messaging, securing resources, financial and otherwise, executing activities to improve the community's public safety, preparedness. Those things include hand sanitizer, distribution of masks, and setting up public Wi-Fi. There's also many other things that went into this. Sam and Florence were able to get a learning center up and running here in the village to be able to serve our most vulnerable children and families by providing a conducive learning space. The work that we've done around rental assistance and utility assistance, Flora's been leading that effort along with Chief around also with homelessness services. So there are so many more activities, and that it's hard to capture them all in a PowerPoint, but they are included as reports in the packets. Next slide, Brian. All right, the internet problem in Yellow Springs. There were folks early on when we started doing the planning for Wi-Fi and high-speed internet. They said, why? Spectrum's already here. AT&T is already here, and all these services. But the reality is that the internet infrastructure is outdated, underpowered, and oversubscribed. What does that mean? It's slow and inconsistent. Under normal circumstances, internet connection is a must-have. During a pandemic, it's just simply crucial. There's no way to do schooling and learning. It was essential to do that. Healthcare, where folks couldn't risk their lives to go to preventative healthcare, they had to use online services. Finding a job and teleworking. It's also key to economic recovery. So what's the solution? That's building a fiber infrastructure. That's what we've done with the public Wi-Fi. We've been able to extend our fiber infrastructure, not just from here, the John Bryan Center, but also from our data center up at Vecca near Eden Road and Danes, Yellow Springs. Provide public Wi-Fi. These things together stabilize community and spur economic development. And in that effort, it also builds equity and closes the digital divide. Next slide. This is what we've accomplished. Here's the product. The lines that are in red, yellow, and green, that's the fiber backbone. The little place markers with the A's, these are the fixed wireless points. There are 12 of them. They are industrial grade access points, providing speed of up to 1.3 gigabytes per second. How fast is that, Brian? That's really fast. Free public Wi-Fi. All of this leads to innovation, leads to economic and social resiliency. All right, next slide. Planning and zoning. Denise had a great busy year. It was the rise of entrepreneurship. We saw new businesses start, Tuck and Reds, expanded hair salon, hair and nail salon, 2 professional service office, expanding and growing business. That's the Yellow Springs Brewery outdoor patio. We also saw major improvements in development in the housing sector. Home Inc. broke ground on the village's first pocket neighborhood development, and that's on 1133 Xenia Avenue. Iron Table Holdings, they're converting 403 Xenia into an apartment building, a 3-unit apartment building, and has recently acquired 314 Dayton Street for redevelopment. That's the old Union Schoolhouse. There were more permits for addition, structures, and home occupation, and this is all under the pandemic. If you look at the chart right there to the right, the permits in 2019 versus 2020, you're going to see a lot of more permits for fences, additions, and accessory structures. Also home builds. You got single-family dwellings there and 2-family permits. So a lot of growth. We did see a slowdown in solar. If you look at the numbers from 48 in 2019 to 12, that is a much lower number. Last year there was a big push for a solar cooperative. I've announced in a previous council meeting that one of the items we want to work on is another cooperative. So I'll be reaching out to our community partners about another solar project. All right, that's the comprehensive land use plan. What's unique about this? One, we've updated it. It's an updated plan. It's comprehensive, but unlike the previous comprehensive plan, it's not printed and sitting on a shelf. This is a live document. It is up online. Denise and Raven also continue to improve this plan. We've made maps available online. We've made some of our GIS custom maps available online for our citizens and residents to view online. And there we've embedded layers so folks can turn on and off different layers, such as the future land use map and our service boundary maps. Those things are layers and they can be turned on and off so it makes it an interactive map. And the next 2 slides go into what the updates are. I want to talk about, if you can go to the next one, Brian, that's the grant opportunities. Talked about the $1.8 million that was granted to the village of Yellow Springs. This is certainly a creative partnership and a creative work and collaboration here in the office, and our support with LGB's Dan Hoyen and Vina. We went out for a grant and we got it. So we're really excited to be able to build out the after transportation plan and be able to fund the goals that council has been very deliberate about creating and finalizing a document for us to be able to implement that. It's great, and we look forward to that. All right, next, Public Works. This year was a great year in performance. One, we were able to do several technology implementations, and we were recognized for that. We want one of the most prestigious awards that we have access to, and that's the Innovation Award through American Municipal Power, and that's leveraging our technology to better serve our residents. So we've integrated our iWork system, which is a work order system and an asset management tool. We've been able to put those together with our GIS system. So implementing and fully utilizing an iWorks system was one of the successes of 2020. We've also won several other awards, honorable mention of overhead primary undergrounding project, public power promotion, and that's the residential solar. And we also won 2 safety awards. One is the Hard Hat Safety Award, and the other is Zero Downtown Safety Award. So to us, those 2 right there are one of the most prestigious awards we could get. One shows that we are innovative, creative, and forward-looking, and the second one that we are conscious and sensitive and safety-oriented, that we do not unnecessarily or not having staff being injured on the site. Electrical department, we've updated the lighting in the John Bryan Center. That's 13 street lights. We replaced all priority reject poles. We had 42 poles that needed to be replaced. 32 of them were done by village crews and 10 by contractors. This not only helps improve the safety of our electrical grid, but it improves the resiliency and help us be better equipped in managing weather conditions. I'll give you a prime example. We had severe storms come through recently, and we had power outages. Well, we could get folks up and running within 2 hours, and we sustained minimal damage from these winds when compared to other communities. Just folks 2 miles down the road in the township went days without power as a result of that. So that speaks volume to the work that we've been able to do in building resiliency, and part of that is installing those big poles and stronger poles. We've also installed 4 enhanced light crosswalks to improve pedestrian safety along Xenia Avenue, and we've conducted 666 locates. This important work is folks who are doing work on properties. They need to know where the utility lines are so that they don't hit key infrastructure and cause greater problems. Our water department, we had routine maintenance check being done on wells, and we discovered problems. One, the sleeve of the conduit that draws water had eroded, and it was near collapse. So we had to re-sleeve well number 2, and we did some repairs to well number 5. We also replaced aged water lines, including a water main that feeds Cemetery Street. So you see some of those pictures there. We also managed another 60 repair work orders. We conducted routine hydrant flushing and replaced 5 hydrants. Wastewater is particularly important for us because we lost a key partner in our strategy to be good environmental stewards and be responsible with how we dispose of biosolids. That's Renergy. So we had to transition away from Renergy, and we moved to an on-site sludge pressing and disposal. We dispose our biosolids at Brown County landfill. So this we're able to continue our environmentally friendly management of biosolids. We also installed a vector dumping station. This will allow us to have greater capacity to jet out sewer lines and storm lines, basin cleaning, and the disposal of its contents. So this will allow us to build capacity. So there's some pictures right there That's Brad right there playing playing with some tomato plants that grew on their biosolids. Amazing how these plants grow on there. So that's Brad on there showing me the tomato plants. All right, next slide, Brian. Streets department, these guys are doing great work. We've got nearly 30 miles of road, 25 miles of sanitary sewers, and over 10 miles of storm sewer that they're responsible for maintaining that. They're also responsible for applying salt on village roads this year, or each winter we do about 200 tons. And you would have seen some of that work on Christmas Day and over the holiday as we got some snow come through. They also performed 605 utility locates through the Ohio 811. We did a lot of raise catch basins and rehabbing catch basins and replacing some basins. That work right there was key to keeping storm water out of our sanitary sewer system. We also installed 8 new bike racks at the Bryan Center around town. These bike racks were made by youth at the Career County Center. So it's a great win-win. We get a valuable service, and the youth at the center get to practice their art and make useful equipment. We also conducted root control in nearly 6,000 feet of sewer, installed 4,000 feet, almost 4,000 feet of the cure in place. That's the relining, jetted 20,000 feet of lines, and we did video inspection and recording of 15,000 feet of sanitary sewers. We also raised 6 manholes that some we discovered this year that were not documented anywhere, and our guys are out GISing and they hit a lid and find metal underground, and it turns out that it's an undocumented maintenance hole that leads to either storm or sanitary sewer. So raise those things out of the ground so that they're visible, they're tagged, they're GIS mapped, and they're being serviced. All right, police department. All right, we transitioned to a full-time community outreach staff. That's Florence Randolph. Her and her team have provided over $78,000 in assistance to stabilize families. And these funds don't include the work that she's doing right now. As we mentioned earlier, she continues to do her utilities and rental assistant work. But through October, she and the team conducted 920 social service encounters. We also launched the chaplain program to assist in traumatic incidents and crisis. We continue our youth engagement and mentoring program during COVID. A direct result of the Justice System Collaborative, Committee Collaborative, we conducted 5 hours of implicit bias training for all police officers. We also added training on suicide prevention, and this is in addition to their regularly mandated annual training program that Chief Carlson and Sergeant Watson routinely monitor and engage in. We also like the bike patrol. Brian, thank you for the opportunity to show off our bike patrol team at the Trails Day. We also improved the records management and data reporting, so we're doing better analytics. The next report has, next slide has a breakdown of our COS, or Community Outreach Services. This is through October. I've got the data updated and couldn't get it for this presentation. We'll distribute that to council for at the next council meeting in the next council package. So you'll see an increase in those numbers. And Brian, I think I'm passing it back to you. And I do have a presentation on water and wastewater. So if I can go now or after you're done with that.
Yeah, I guess since we've got this up, I'll talk about some of the year in review highlights, and then we'll jump back into wastewater. That sounds great. So I captured a quote here. I'm particularly impressed and proud of our village team members who were able to accomplish so much during this pandemic. That was from our Vice President, Mary Ann McQueen. And yeah, I can't emphasize enough that, I think we would have been certainly happy. I guess I can say this now with just maintaining during COVID. But the fact that things continued to get done on the goals list was super exciting. So I thought it would be good just to kind of look at this in terms of our village values. It's always nice to highlight what we're all about. And, you know, our first village value is about our decision making and making sure that our folks can participate. And one of the things I wanted to highlight here was just, I believe our pandemic response was a model. And I think there are a few people that would argue with that. And in terms of just, you know, what we did to not only secure the funds that were owed to us, but also to think about all of the folks in the village, our community members, our businesses, our visitors, I mean, everybody that, you know, is a part of what we do. And, you know, there's some things that are highlighted here around, you know, our mask ambassador program, where we made sure to put masks in people's hands. Our peace officers did a great job and have done a great job of continuing those efforts. There are a variety of other things that went on as well, but there are a few municipalities in Ohio or beyond that really were committed to, or have been committed to, the safety protocols that we have been. If we look at Village Value 2, there we go, being a model employer. One of the things that has been a major point of conversation in the Justice System Collaborative Committee meetings is how we do a better job of not only our diversity hiring practices, but also making sure that we're looking at our selections of vendors in a careful way. And so some of the things that are also highlighted here, and I think this is part of the sustainable framework piece, is what we're doing around utilities. And, you know, I think many of you are aware that we've done an electric study. We have also looked at our sewer system and our stormwater management. And as Josue highlighted earlier on, there are a lot of things that we're doing proactively, and this is going to be something that we're really going to notch down on in 2021. But very important work on both levels. And, you know, not only do we want to make sure that we are being the employer that matches our values, but also that we are providing the right kind of services for our citizens. So value 3, being a welcoming community, one of my favorite values. I want to say here that the Arts and Culture Commission has done some amazing work. Not only have you guys seen the installation on the side of the hardware store, but a lot of other things have been happening in the village that really highlight how important Black lives are and how important it is to think about diversity in our community. The other thing is our resolution designating racism as a public health issue has been a guiding point for a lot of the work that we've done. And when we talk about goals in the next area of our agenda, you're going to see that's something that we're going to continue to prioritize. Value 4 is around our economy. And I want to say that in general, Yellow Springs has continued to be a thriving, healthy environment for folks to want to come and live, work, and play. And some of the things that we're doing in the short term, we've been supporting our local businesses and helping them with not just our CARES Act dollars, but in other ways that make a lot of sense. But we also are thinking about the fact that we want to make sure that we are resilient in terms of our economy, and that we're also ready for some of the growth that we're seeing moving forward. Cresco has been an amazing success story for the village, and we believe that there are other businesses that want to be in Yellow Springs because of the values that we espouse. Our 5th value is highlighting our carbon footprint or the lack thereof. And I think many of you are aware of the energy portfolio that ranges from the high 70s to the mid 80s, depending on when we are taking in energy. There have been some exciting projects that have been brought forward that we're going to pursue around how we build out our solar portfolio. And renewable energy is a commitment that this village has, and we believe that it is sustainable. The other thing that Josue has highlighted is that it can be reasonably economical. And so one of the things that we're seeing is that our values are actually translating to things that make sense. And then the last village value I wanted to talk about is anti-racism. And so, you know, we've talked about the resolution that we have been very engaged in focusing on, but I wanted to mention a couple other things here, including the Justice System Collaborative Committee, which has been meeting since about September of 2020. A lot of things have happened. We've decriminalized possession of marijuana. We are looking at decriminalizing or minimizing other stops that aren't all that necessary in sort of the bigger scheme of things. And there are a lot of other exciting things that are happening with our police department and the things that our peace officers are doing related to our community. The other thing I mentioned here, and I referenced it before, is some of the initiatives like the protest banner installation, and that's going to be expanded soon, are things that really define what our community is about, but more importantly, make it clear that we are taking a stand regionally, state, and nationally to move forward those values. So there are dozens of other things that I could have highlighted, but I wanted to really just kind of bring us, into like some of the priority things that you're gonna see again when we talk about our goals. And I know that the village team and council members have been really proud about the work that we focused on. And again, the priority is keeping our community safe during the pandemic, but it's nice to see that we can keep things moving forward. So with that, Josue, I'll let you wrap up with some of your last thoughts.
Josue, you're muted.
Thank you, Kevin. Just realized I was muted. Thank you. All right, last year, I presented this for the end of the year report on January 21 of 2020. If you recall, one of the unopened envelopes that was waiting for me on my desk when I joined the team in June was this letter from the EPA. And it was a warning that we were at near capacity of our sanitary sewer system. It's highlighted right there, that with the past effluent violation and bypasses from sewage collection and treatment system, the village may not have the necessary capacity to handle this new development. So we dug a little deeper in it. What was this all about? And it was due to how much water we were treating in our sanitary sewer system. So how much that water is, on average, the overflow was 657,000 gallons per day. And our capacity, as noted by the EPA, was that 600,000 gallons per day. So we were exceeding our capacity. So I knew then we had to do something about our sanitary sewer systems. And that was top priority within our infrastructure goal set. And we got to work. And I'm happy to report that The team has successfully reduced wastewater processed by the plant by 60% of the year-to-year change. We initially had set a goal of reducing infiltration and inflow and stormwater entering our system by 10%, and we exceeded that number. And here are the numbers. Here are the numbers of going back to 2018. And I'm gonna walk you through the layout of these columns. This right here is water produced versus wastewater reclaimed. So water we produce at the plant, send it out to a resident, and how much water comes back to our wastewater treatment facility. So first column on these three tables is the month. That's the month of the year. Second column is the water produced, how much water our plant produces and distributes in millions of gallons, and what wastewater is reclaimed, also in millions of gallons. So if you look at the data from 2018, we produced 102 million gallons of water. Sorry, that's then we also reclaimed 228 million gallons of water. We reclaimed 223% of the water we produced. That's an indication that there's water coming back to our system that we didn't put it out there. That's stormwater coming into our system. Look at the number in 2019. I came in June of 2019 and we got to work on some of the things that were identified back in 2012 that needed to be done urgently, replacing maintenance lids and doing some of that low-hanging fruit. We got to work in 2019 and 2020. And so in 2019, you see that number going down. We produced 126 million gallons of water, and we reclaimed 238. Still a lot, but it was 188% of the water we produced. And here are the numbers for 2020. It's down to 125% of the water we produce. We produced 143 million gallons of water, and we reclaimed 179.9, so 180 million gallons of water. That's big accomplishment. I'm proud of the work that the team has done to reduce the overall water that we're reclaiming at the wastewater facility, and in making that efficiency improvements. That's less, we're keeping clean water clean, and that ultimately resulting in less chemicals being used, less water that we're dumping in the Glen, and an overall improvement on the system and our protection of the environment. So I think those are big gains, and I'm just gonna pause there, let that sink. That is a lot of water we kept out of our sanitary system, millions of gallons. All right, so what's next? We also look at the wastewater claim. This is particularly important to what's referenced in this letter. We could not exceed our wastewater treatment processing to beyond 600,000 gallons per day. So where are we at now? These are water reclaim averages. In 2019, we had exceeded that number on the averages, 651,000 gallons per day. That was our average. We've been able to get that down to under 500,000. That's big improvement in efficiency in the system. So we have improved that efficiency. Now we're able to take on more facilities. And I think that if we go back to that letter from the EPA, they have made an error in their calculation. They initially thought that the senior living facility was going to be a 5-person living facility. And they said, if you take this on, it's going to add 50,000 gallons per day to your system. And that's going to exceed your capacity beyond 600,000. Well, based on this number of our averages, we're under that 500,000. I'd say we can handle that 500 person living facility now, the capacity. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm saying if we have that room and that capacity. So that's something to be proud of. It speaks volumes to the work of our team, their commitment, their ingenuity, their creativity in getting the work done. Now, everything's not perfect. It's not all perfect. It's not exactly everywhere we want to be, because the next slides indicates where do we want to focus our work for the next year. And I talked in the past about water and have a better pulse on water that's produced and water that's billed. Well, this slide shows what water we produce versus water that gets billed. We produce it, and how much are we actually selling it and being able to associate it to a customer, to a house, to a building, or to a farm. So in 2018, when the system came online, and I want to refresh your memory on this system, our water plant is relatively new. It went online in January of 2018, and it started recording the water going out in February of 2018. So the partial data for those, we have partial data for those 2 months. Everything beyond that is as accurate as we're going to get. So the total for 2018, we produced 102 million gallons of water. We sold 69.4 or nearly 0.5, 69.5 million gallons of water. That's a loss of nearly 33%. Water that we don't know where it went. Some of it is through leaks. We have an aged infrastructure and we've got leaky pipes. So we know there's some of that water loss there. There's water mains that break through the winters, and we know we have water losses there, but we know we also have water losses due to lines being connected to our system that we don't have meters on, that we're unable to track. We don't have meters on. Number for 2019, we produced 126 million gallons. We sold 81 million gallons. That's a water loss of 36%. Picture gets worse in 2020, which highlights the importance of being able to track every gallon of water we produce. In 2020, we produced 143.6 million gallons. We sold 78.2. That's a loss of 65 million gallons. That's a 46% loss. So we got a lot of work to do in our water system, and we're going to continue our work on sanitary sewers, but we're going to be laser focused on water production and water distribution. So I present a great success story and also a highlight of the challenge ahead of us.
All right, thanks for that, Josue. And I did want to, I realized there was a piece that I wanted to highlight around Village Value 5, and that is our National Wildlife Federation Community Habitat Certification. And this is, not only one of the things that is going to help us to remain environmentally resilient, but also a major attraction to our community and something you're going to be hearing more about. So kudos to the Environmental Commission, Mary Ann McQueen, and others that have championed that. Any questions or comments before we wrap up our year in review?
Well, I'd like to say, Brian, I don't remember if other years in review were presented the way this one was in line with our village values. I think that really, really, made it pertinent, made it feel real, and able to keep everything in context. And I really appreciate that. And I feel geeky asking you this question, Josue. But there's one number that said that we relined 3,900 feet of sanitary sewer lines, but we videoed 15,000 feet. The 3,900 that we relined, was that the extent of what needed to be relined, or is there a lot more relining that needs to be done?
There's a lot more relining that needs to be done. We relined what we could afford and what was top priority, so things that were in imminent collapse. So we've got that footage and we've got a map of everything that we've relined. Johnny took, if you recall, there was a bit of a faded map that was hand-drawn where we were able to digitize that and we got it on our GIS system. So we've got an updated map of what was inspected, video and visually inspected or camera inspected. And we tagged it on conditions. We tagged the condition of the storm and how big certain damages were. and we prioritize based on that. But certainly more work that needs to be done. We are going to present later in the year at the request of Mary Ann and Brian that they want to see the long-term strategy. What does the revitalization or rehabilitation, if you will, of our sanitary sewer system for the village look like? How long would it take to get through all of it? Johnny and I just connected. We connected earlier today about reviewing the total cost. We're looking at an overall cost of $4 million to do the relining throughout the village. We don't have $4 million sitting around to do this. So we're going to prioritize based on the video that we've done, and we've got more videoing and inspections to do in 2021.
Okay, great. Well, like you said, there is nothing. We have a great past with respect to the work that you have done. I want to commend you and the team for that. But as you said, there's a lot that we have to look forward to doing, and yeah, we'll just roll up our sleeves and get her done, as it were. Thank you, guys. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments?
Swade, the water numbers, the loss seems to be driven in part by higher numbers of water being produced at the new plant. Do you have an explanation for that?
Our water production there's a process that's automated, and it's based on water levels at the towers. So the towers, as the water is being drained from the tower, it just signals the plant that more water production is necessary. So that's an automated process in terms of the feedback loop. Tower says you need more water, we produce more water. So we're seeing that that system is triggering us to produce more water, and it's generating more water production. But also want to point out that to some extent, when compared to, I'm gonna pull that up and I'll show you the number, Laura, because I think it's good.
Well, you don't have to answer it now, but it just seems to me that that's driving that difference is the numbers of production are significantly up with the new plant.
Correct, and consumption is also up. When you compare our 2018 numbers, we were producing under 70 million gallons, and we're now in 2020, we produced 78.2. So that's almost 10 million gallons more in water production that's actually billed. That's stuff that we can actually say we got a payment for, or we got a bill for. So we do have more consumption and that we can track through the billing process. But yes, I think your assessment or your insight is on that we're producing more water. And if we have a constant flow, like a leak, more water you produce, you're gonna have more water losses because it's at a constant leak. So yeah, we know that we have leaks in the system. I actually know of one resident that Johnny made replaced their entire 130 feet of water line in the back. They had a very lush backyard, and now we know why it was so lush, because there's a big water leak underneath their backyard that kept the plants watered all the time. Johnny, is there anything you want to add to that?
I would just add that we don't have no actual numbers prior to 18 because the water plant never had a water meter that worked. So we're working on 2018, 19, and 20s, and we're proactively searching for different places. I know that we put 5 meters in for places that did not have water meters. Fire department was one of them. Everything that the fire department took out of the system, we did not get paid for, or we could not write it off because we don't know who took it. So they installed a new water meter at their new facility, so we can have a deduct water meter. Fire tests are on that as well. Antioch, Friends Care, Cresco, all that. We need to start recouping some of that money as well. So we are producing more, and it does look like a loss, but I also think some of the loss could be from all the fire protection systems that are being tested and built. Cresco had 5 or 6 of them before they even got open.
Does it seem like the more water that we are producing maybe puts more pressure on the lines, and that's why the percentage of water loss increases?
No, the pressure remains the same no matter which direction it's going. But basically, if you look at it, the water loss, so if you can figure, I think the water loss was what, 69,000 or 69 million last year, Josue? We're saying there's 69 towers of water somewhere in the village. So I think it could be some errors somewhere, a meter's not reading correctly, and that's what we're challenged with this year, is to try to figure it out. I mean, we've had a couple water issues that have to be repaired, and we try to get them shut down as fast as possible. We've had fire systems, we've had a couple of fires that had been put out. So this is a challenge for us in 20 to figure out where the loss is coming from. And we're also working with Gina Hayes with the EPA on this as well.
Thanks for that update, Johnny. Any other questions or comments? All right, this is great. Thank you guys for the report out. I know we'll be talking more about 2021 on January 20th. So we have a couple old business items. As far as meaningful actions related to anti-racism, the JSCC has not met since our last meeting. But one of the things I mentioned at our last meeting was that we're going to move to one meeting a month. So the next meeting will be January 12th from 4 to 5:30. So the meetings will fall, I think, pretty regularly on the Tuesday between the two council meetings, so that we can report out on at the second meeting of the month. But otherwise, I know there's a lot of activity. I know Laura, Kevin, others have been really engaged in things, and we're gonna, and Lisa as well, and we're gonna continue to move that forward. So, second thing, and I'll share my screen again, is we wanted to give a little bit of a preview related to goals. All right. Doesn't seem like any of my screens have that showing. All right, so let me try this again. All right, there we go. What I will highlight, and we're not going to spend a significant amount of time today because we do have our council retreat on January 20th that I already mentioned, where we're going to get more in depth. But first of all, I tried to move our goals to one page. And you'll notice I sort of artificially focused on 3 goals around each area item. I got a lot of great feedback from Laura Curlis. Also, Marianne and Lisa and Kevin had highlighted some things at our last meeting. So I tried to capture many of those items, but I will admit, as I'm sure Laura knows, not all of the items that she recommended are captured here, which doesn't mean that they should not be. And certainly I have a lot of other items as well, as probably other council members do. But I guess I wanted to, kind of highlight what, maybe a new platform for looking at our goals, how it might show up. But this is not meant to pigeonhole us at all. You'll notice in the goal section itself, I try to really break these down into the key aspects, but these do for the most part borrow from our goals for the past couple of years, or at least our aspirations. I did add this village vitality item at the bottom because I thought there were some goals that were expressed that didn't really fit into some of the other areas, and I thought they were important to capture. Beyond that, one of the things that I think is going to be really important for us to do at the retreat is look at who's responsible and what our resources are. So I have intentionally left that blank. I think there are some obvious contenders for those spots. But I wanted to, again, allow for some flexibility. But ultimately, I guess I want to put this out there. I think it does capture a lot of what I've heard council and other team members talk about. But I think we can take 5 or 10 minutes to have some initial discussion if anyone has some thoughts. And then we're going to have a lot more discussion about this over the next couple meetings. So I'll stop there and happy to share the mic.
I can jump in.
Yes.
I appreciate the distillation that this represents. And, I think it is a really good idea. I've been advocating for this, the idea of tightening down the goals. I could imagine, though, knowing that there are some things that may be important to people that, at our retreat, we talk about kind of must have, great to have, probably not going to happen in 2021 list. So we don't lose track of things. I think that, we all come up against capacity issues, and it may be that there's some sub-activities that might emerge later on in the year, depending on how far we can get and how the year unfolds. So I'm in support of accepting a goal document for 2021 that identifies the things that are absolutely imperative that we must achieve, and a secondary list of more aspirational goals. Thanks.
Thank you. I like that. Other thoughts, Laura?
Yeah, I like what Lisa just said, because there are definitely things I would put in the we must do category, and those would take the most energy and resources, I would think. So maybe that could be an exercise at the retreat, is everybody go to their own big white sheet of paper and put must, would like, aspirational, I need some explanation on things, which doesn't have to happen here, like what promote pace, ESID, what's a good fit neighborhood. Like, I don't know what these mean. So, and I imagine the public doesn't either. So there are things that are government speak that we need to explain. There are things that I think each council person would like to see on the list that maybe aren't on the list. So I don't, what often happens is the power of the pen. The person who has the pen gets to make the list, and gosh darn it, everybody else gets to say, well, I'd like that off the list and my thing on the list. And it's a debate. So we'll have that discussion at the retreat.
Yep. And I think it's an important one to have. Laura, you also remind me that, what I'd like to see happen that we talked about last year is then breaking these like must-dos into how we deliver those, so what are the steps to do that? And, I think in the case of, also Judy and Josue's goals, they're looking at the same kinds of things. What are the metrics or the steps that get us there, get us across the finish line? So thanks for that feedback. Marianne?
Yes. Well, I, first of all, am very impressed with the job that you did, Brian, in distilling the meat of the goals and cutting off the fat, or I won't keep going with that analogy, but I am truly impressed and really appreciate that you did that. And there's only one thing that I would have us consider adding, which is, I know, going to be controversial, but I do think that given the importance of the Mills Lawn property, that, and people's concern about it, that sometime during 2021, I would like to see us help make space for a community discussion, which of course would involve the schools as well, about what might happen in that space. And when I say a discussion, I mean a discussion that includes some of the history and people's associations with the space. And so I understand that can open a can of worms, but it's also, that can of worms has already been opened, I think. So whether that fits into our goals, I don't know, but I did want to bring that up.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. I mean, there were a few items I intentionally left off because I wanted us to discuss them before putting them on. And that was one, but it's one I think that, other council members care about as well. And I think the community cares a lot about. Kevin.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. I don't see this as much as a culling out of other priorities or discarding. I mean, I look at it definitely more as a priority because Brian, even in your introduction, you said that there were other things that are definitely important. But it's interesting, and this just a mental exercise that I just did. And Josue just recently talked about in his updates about the importance of municipal broadband. Well, that's not, it almost doesn't matter whether I see it, as a 2021 action in this particular column. But what I did was I asked myself, given the importance of it, is it anywhere else as part of a future or ongoing activity? And for all the reasons that we tout the importance of municipal broadband, if we own that utility, it is a revenue opportunity. It's not just all the, equity and education and health. Yes, it's all of that. But what we don't talk about often is that it is also a revenue opportunity. So, whereas all of the things that we think are important can have multiple layers of benefits, again, I would just challenge us to go through that mental exercise that I just did and say, okay, it's there. It may not be listed, but we're still going to get the benefit from it. And just because it's not in this one pager, which is nice to have, it doesn't mean that it's not important. We talked about starting this effort by trying to grasp those things that we know we can get done. And I think Lisa used the phrase earlier that it's not continually to be continued. Let's say we're going to do something that we can actually do, that we have a start, a middle, and a finish to, in the time frame that we're talking about. And we're never going to get all the things that we put on that long list done in any 1 year anyway, no matter how many times we try. But I think this just forces us to be a bit more realistic. Yeah, in our retreat, maybe some things will shift around, maybe something will come off and something else will get on, but I think when we look at the value of the things that we think about and we look at the impact to the community, even though you don't see the word broadband, I know it's in there. I can tell it's in there. So
yeah, and it's there under the 5th goal, by the way, promote sustainable growth. But I think I love your point because there still needs to be a prioritization exercise. And I think that to me is what I'm most interested in for our retreat is, what are those opportunities that we can really make happen? And, ironically, I wanted to put municipal broadband in quite a few of the columns, but anyway, but it is there and it's a very important one.
I think you're on a really important point, both of you, because yeah, it's part of promoting sustainable growth, but it could also map to other things. And I would argue from my way of thinking, if there's an action that aligns with multiple goals, then that's a more important action than one that's maybe just a niche.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is, as Kevin began to describe, a useful way of thinking about how things map across different goals and map across different values.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And, it really, when, I was involved in both of the, annual reviews. And when I thought about our discussions with Judy and with Josue, they really did things connected together like that. And I agree, municipal broadband is one of a few things that cuts across so many lines. Website is another one. I mean, there having a vital website really just checks off so many boxes for us. And so I'd love to look more at that as we really zone in on what we're going to do in 2021. Any other, Josue, any comments?
I love the conversation that we're having. I personally, Brian, as you were talking about, I'd like to see the things that are interconnected, and I look to see what is going to have a multiplier effect or an enabling effect for another goal. And that's, in part that we have a lot going on, and we try to be as targeted, as effective, and as efficient with our limited resources. So naturally, when you got a lot of things going on, you tend to I'll speak for myself and my team. We're focusing on what are the we must deliver, what are the top priorities, and they enabled other things. A good example is what we've accomplished with the wastewater reclamation. I thought that even putting 10% up as a goal was ambitious. We were shooting for the stars, for the universe, and we landed on the moon. And well, actually, in this case, we went beyond because we were able to reduce so much more. And that speaks to the value of having a high target as a high goal. That the higher it is, the closer you may get. You may fail to get there, but you're going to get somewhere between. So there's improvement or advancement to be made. So I like the conversation that you guys are having around the interconnectedness of all of these goals, and they have a multiplier effect. When you accomplish one, it enables the other one, and it just makes it accomplishing the other one easier. So I look forward to the dialogue at the work session and finding that interconnectedness and looking for the multiplier and enabling effect of accomplishments.
Thanks for that, Josue. All right, so I think if there aren't any comments, other comments, we're going to move into new business. And I believe the first thing I saw on new business was, the solar power. Josue.
All right, Brian, thank you. In the packet, we've included a letter from our AMP partnership. I'm going to give you some context. I've previously reported to council that in 2021, we have an energy contract, the EDI landfill, that's expiring, and we need to replace that energy contract. In total, we've got 1.8 megawatts of power that we need to secure once Blue Creek and the EDI landfill expire. So it's part of our multi-pronged approach to building out a portfolio that's environmentally friendly and speaks to the values of our community. The multi-pronged approach means pursuing several opportunities at once and picking the best one. And that's a better strategy than just pursuing one and being locked into one option. So I'm providing council with options, and another option that's available to us is being able to join the AMP partnership in a group power purchase agreement that would benefit several members in the AMP community. So we want to seek authorization from council for a non-binding support to be part of a procurement or group negotiation through AMP to secure additional solar power purchase agreement. The project that AMP is pursuing, they're looking at a utility scale solar production, very much similar to what you've heard and read in the papers or what's being built out in the townships and out in the farmlands. This one, it's not that one, so we're not associated with that, but AMP is working on a utility grade solar production, and they want to get a non-binding commitment or non-binding interest from the various AMP partners, so that when they reach out to producers, power producers, they have a good idea of how much production the memberships is going to buy, so that we can negotiate pricing. So it's non-binding. This will give us an opportunity to be at the table, so that as AMP negotiates a rate, we can choose to accept or not accept. So your authorization on this non-binding letter of interest would allow us to remain in the game, remain at the table, and gives us another option. You would then have the power to decide if you want to pursue that route, the route of purchasing solar through AMP with a PPA, or we're still working on exploring the 2 megawatt solar production at the Sun Farm and other projects. So we would have more options.
Well, it looks great to me.
Josue, can I ask a question? You may not be able to answer this, but I mean, when I look at the letter on AMP's letterhead, and I presume that's a nearly exhaustive list of all the communities that they're working with. What do they consider success? In other words, how much support from that entire list of communities do they need to move forward with their plans?
I think it's really an element of how much volume each member is looking to buy. As I mentioned, we got 1.8 that we want to replace in our portfolio. So that gets aggregated to everyone else. And based on that number, total production or purchase power that we have, that gives us bargaining power at the table. I'm not sure what the total demand would be in the AMP membership. I don't know if it's enough to say buy a whole project or for us to own an entire project. We wouldn't know that until all the members have decided and thrown their name in the hat to say they want to be considered. I tell you from another experience, we recently had a meeting with AMP, a confidential business meeting. I'll share what limited details I can. One of the products or opportunities that we had was to replace our EDI with hydropower. The price point's very competitive, but we couldn't buy it on our own. We had to go in with another AMP partner for us to have bargaining power. So we're talking about, our demand 1.8 was less than 15% of what they had available to sell. So we needed someone else to go in with us because they're interested in being able to sell their power to a partnership, a membership, versus having to negotiate smaller contracts and then they have to manage several contracts. So that's the what I can tell you about where we are in this process. We wouldn't know how much bargaining power we have until we get a tally of all the members that are interested and what they're interested in buying.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thanks for explaining.
Josue, I'm really concerned about these solar projects that are built on farmland and prime farmland in particular, because it's almost like we're trying to do something virtuous on the one hand, and on the other hand, we're causing a lot of harm. So I agree we should be at the table. I hope we get to influence what type of project is ultimately chosen. I hope they give us a choice of industrial legacy land project versus prime soils. Because if you bring us a project where the solar is built on farmland, I'm going to vote no.
Mm-hmm. And, unfortunately, as a small player, market player that we are, we've got some limitations. But what you're talking about, Laura, I had this conversation with Johnny. We had a conversation about solar and where some of these solars are going. And a good example is our Sun Farm. Sun Farm is a very fertile land that can be farmed. We are not farming it. We don't have the capacity, and some of the corporate farming that could be done on it is not something that's acceptable from a land chemical application. So there's some challenges there. And for us, we have a fertile land that could be farmed, but we could also easily produce solar generation from. So you've got those challenges. Johnny and I we're having these conversations, and we're conscious of it. One of the things that I feel good about where the market is that, there are market forces that are very difficult to influence. And one of those is price. To your point, where productive farmland is being taken offline from farming because solar is much more productive economically, I'm hopeful that the same market forces would help drive utility scale projects to things that are not competing with farmers because of the price point. That lands that are less fertile or less conducive to farming have a lower price point, because they're not as they don't yield as high as fertile land. So I'm hopeful that those market forces are going to direct an AMP project towards a land acquisition and land use that is less fertile and less productive. That's where I hope that the market forces really prioritize the lower productive lands, and I think that's something that we can ask for. I don't know if that gets to your question or your comment, but I want you to know that our team is very knowledgeable, insightful, and well guided in that regard.
I hope your faith in the market works, because the other force that is happening is they need a lot of it. So that's why that farmland is attractive to solar developers.
Right. The other challenge that we have, we in our conversations with our partners, we anticipate getting a good rate on the production side, but then we're going to get hit with that transmission cost. And so the further away that we're buying power from, that transmission cost kicks in, and that's where local product or local generation benefits our community, because we don't have to pay that transmission cost to deliver electrons from far away. It's here locally and it's within our grid system. So not only will we save transmission costs, but we also have a built-in peak shaver or peak savings mechanism, because we can support our community on high peak days with our local production. So those are some of the things that we're weighing on, but the market forces are real. And, as a student of business administration and business processes, and having been trained in that field, I understand them and I look for creative ways to work with them, because can't go in a uphill battle with the economic forces.
So great discussion, and I appreciate that we need to think about village values in whatever final decision is made, and we have other options for solar as well. So Josue, are you asking for us to give a sign of approval to be at the table? Is that?
Yes, I need your authorization to submit a non-binding letter of interest to AMP to be part of the group negotiations. And okay. Again, non-binding, so you don't like it, you get another chance to vote on it.
Right. Brianne, let's go ahead and just do a roll call in support of this.
Hausch.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
And again, the key is non-binding, and we will make a good decision. Thanks, Josue. We have two other new business items. One is the agenda for January 20th, our retreat. It, as always, is intentionally, open. Obviously, the focus is on goals. We've got commissions in the mix. Is there anything else that folks would like to add to the agenda, or any nuances or whatnot?
What's the planned duration of this meeting?
3 hours, 5 to 8 p.m.
Thank you.
Council should discuss its council rules before we vote again.
Yep.
And, last year I tried to bring, and we worked really hard, and people had good conversation about changing the way we do business and use more council committees. And I see you did put a finance committee, so maybe we can have a little bit of expanded conversation on the committee structure.
Yep.
I see that on the agenda, board and commission strategy.
Yep.
Oh, board and commission strategy. Okay.
But that also implies,
Okay.
or I've been starting to, add committees. So yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Well, Brian, there had been conversation about people prioritizing goals as they saw them. So given on the one hand, we have a somewhat open-ended agenda, but I think it would be good if we could think about the goals and do as was suggested, so that we spend time talking about what we think is most important, or at least we put those things at the front end of the conversation.
Sounds good. All right. Anything else?
I think we've got more than enough for 3 hours.
Yes, we definitely do. And, again, we've normally thought about a 2-part retreat. I'm happy that we're ahead of the game on our goals. I think we're all pretty focused these days. And so, Josue, I think an important part for you and the team is going to be, we always try to marry, what council's thinking and what the staff is thinking. And so I think we, really want to be very intentional about that. So we'll work on that over the next couple weeks.
Okay, sounds good.
I do have one suggestion, given that we definitely have more than 3 hours worth of conversation to have, that we might develop some kind of plan to the things that we don't really get enough time to talk about, that we designate a couple people, but whatever makes sense, to continue that topic. And then we have maybe a group of topics that are going to be continued. And then a team would bring them back as makes sense to talk, maybe during a regular council meeting, or maybe another planning session or a mini planning session, but so that we spend enough time on things that are important, but that we also don't just drop things off that are also important.
Sounds good. Any other thoughts? All right, I heard we have a planning commission nomination.
I'd like to nominate Sarah Sinclair Amend for the regular spot that's available, and Matthew Kirk for the alternate spot.
Second.
Okay. And, I'll just add in, I think everyone knows Sarah has been engaged and has a great planning background and a lot of interest in the community, a family as well. Matthew Kirk is also a well-known entity and has a lot of great ideas to contribute. So love these recommendations. Brianne, let's call the roll.
I have a question.
Oh.
Were they interviewed by 2 council members? Are we still doing that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the second.
Okay. Just good to know.
Yes.
And Matthew has a really great economic development background too, as that's in his professional life.
Yep.
And Sarah has been the alternate.
Yeah.
So she's stepping in from alternate.
Right, yeah.
Cool.
So Lisa and Laura did the interview?
Yes.
Okay. So roll call, Hausch,
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Okay. Managers report. Josue, give us your highlights.
All right. Where do I start? It's the end of the year. So a lot of the end of the year wrapping up work's going in place. So closing out the budget, loading the new budget, the 21 budget that council has approved, that's been uploaded. We're entering the PO. So a lot of that work happened over the last 2 weeks, which is a reporting period. I previously announced that public Wi-Fi has been installed. We're moving into phase 2, and that's setting up wireless access points at the high density facilities that we identify as a high priority area, Corey Street Apartments and Hawthorne Apartments. So that work is it's well underway. The fiber's been run and whatnot. The meeting with Renee, that's scheduled in February, so I'll provide an update when that becomes available. We've had some staff transitions. Danielle Franklin, part-time dispatcher, has transitioned out for a full-time opportunity. As you know, we're a fan of Danielle Franklin's work, and we're unable to provide a full-time opportunity, and we understand her needs and desire for upward mobility, and we hope to be able to provide an opportunity down the road should one become available. Deborah Kelly's also transitioned out of the utilities office. We are reevaluating the position and the duties associated, and we'll make a determination down the road if we make another hire. Nicole Trexler has been offered a part-time dispatcher position to replace Daniel Franklin's spot as a dispatcher for our government. As you know, it's not just police dispatch, but they also handle emergency calls for utilities. Recycling mailers have gone out, so I hope you've got a chance to receive that and you've had reviewed that letter. So that mailing went out to all solid waste customers and reminding them of the new recycling capabilities for number 5 plastic tubs. Those are propylene plastics such as butter and yogurt and food containers. Energy contracts, we are making some good progress on that 1.8 megawatt of energy contracts that expire in 2021 and 2022. So we're met with AMP and we continue to explore our own solar production. And so our target will be sometime around March to come back to council with a feasibility study on on all the options that are available. We met with the AMP financing team, reviewing the financing options. Next, we'll move on to a meeting with Port Authority about what financing options are available through them. Things are looking good on the AMP financing side through bond financing and anticipated anticipated revenue bonds financing. That's their program model. Health insurance, mentioned previously that we've switched brokers. We will be going to the market in January. We're in the process of developing a survey tool, something that we haven't done in the administration, to understand the needs and desires of our workforce as it relates to health insurance. So we'll roll out that survey soon and go out to the market for a renewal option and new options. Mentioned budget has been finalized. The audit reports have been completed by the state. We've circulated the report from the state with council members. Should you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. We're entering the end of the year reporting and closing procedures. That's 1099s, W-2s, and all that fun stuff that has to be done at the end of the year. Police department reports included for your review. Should you have any questions, please let me know. Also, public works report is included. And I will now take your questions.
All right, any questions for Josue? All right, thank you, sir. And I do like that haircut. So with that, any discussion around future agenda items?
Brian, I have one. I've got the bike path project contract that needs to come to council. The schools that reached out to us, they requested a joint meeting. So council will need to make a decision whether we have a joint meeting with the school board or is council's wishes to consider the contract at its regular council meeting and then pass it on to the schools.
And Josue, just out of curiosity, why do the schools want a joint meeting?
I think a joint meeting allows the two bodies to be able to convene and have two-way dialogue versus one body having questions that would then need to be answered by the body at a later time when it convenes. I think the two bodies meeting allow it to have a fruitful conversation in real time and make decisions together.
Sounds good. Okay.
Just
Yes, Brianne will have the legal perspective.
Because it's a contract to purchase real estate, if there are any one adopts that the other doesn't adopt, and you have to go back and make the revisions. And because the school board is also a public entity, both of the bodies have to act in an open meeting. So that's for convenience sake, like Josue said, it's better to have the two-way dialogue if it's practical.
And just out of curiosity, what's the urgency on when this meeting happens?
I think the urgency is relative. As you know, there was a lot of enthusiasm early on to get the council commitment and the allocation of funds, and I certainly responded in that with that sense of urgency as it was presented to me. I think here we have to consider what the grant deadlines are for the Agraria, so I can reach out to Susan about what timetables we have to do. Some of the challenges to consider is the administrative processes that any real estate transaction will take. So there's work to be done after the contract's approved to finalize. So,
and I think it is pretty urgent. Because I know typically those Clean Ohio grants have 15 months. I'm guessing they've gotten an extension because of COVID, but. So part of my thought is if we can build out this agenda. So let's talk about that offline. But obviously, the Mills Lawn property has been raised. So I don't know. I don't know if it's possible to have more than one item on the agenda, or if that's even a good idea. But let's think more about that.
And I'm happy to be the messenger and try to work with the school board leadership to explore that. I think that is a great idea, Brian. There are a lot of topics we talk about and things that affect both political subdivisions, and we just don't have a venue or platform to have that dialogue.
Right.
I think that we've talked about having an opportunity to have that dialogue, and this may be it.
Cool.
I also don't know how the Development Corp might help facilitate this conversation, given that the school board sits on that as well. Maybe that adds complication, but should maybe think about it.
Oh, cool. Any other future agenda items? So Kevin, you probably saw that we have the Juneteenth resolution on the agenda. Are you interested in being part of writing that resolution?
Yes, sure.
All right, good. So I'm gonna have you coordinate with Judy on that. That'd be great. And I know that's something that you had mentioned interest in, and I want to make sure we do it well before Juneteenth hits us.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
Brian, we've got the parking minimums recommendation from Planning Commission. I think administration would appreciate knowing when we need to come back to council with a presentation on that.
Yeah, I think it's probably, we'll check, but it probably can work for the next meeting. As I expressed offline, I mean, it's one thing to bring in topics that are, you know, just cleaning up the zoning code, but this is a bigger deal. And so I want to make sure that we discuss these things in agenda planning before they end up on an agenda. So, okay. Anything else? All right. Well, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. And I just want, yes. And I just want to close by saying, Judy, we're thinking about you. Yeah, we just need you to be okay. And we missed you tonight. So take care. Take care, everybody else.
Yeah.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Have a
Good night.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Night.